What is something you've seen that no one will ever believe? I was working with my desk lamp on. I needed to plug in my laptop, so I ducked under the desk to plug it into the other available outlet. While I was down there, I realized both outlets were open. My desk lamp had come unplugged. But I could only see this, because the lamp was still shining. I muttered, "What the fuck," and it instantly shut off. I have no explanation. This was just like the most standard lamp ever, no batteries or solar power or anything like that. Ada, thanks for the gold. Above my house as a kid, there was a field, perfectly visible from my backyard, that would dry up and catch fire a lot during the summer. One year it caught fire, and I looked up to see a man running around in flames and drop to the ground. My friends were all there saying they didn't see it, and that I was imagining things. My mom decided to follow up with the fire department to see if they discovered a body, and they said no. At this point, I'm being called a liar by my own family now too. Until one day, out of the blue, another fire breaks out, and sure enough, the fire department discovers a charred corpse which they said was about a month old. Just a quick follow-up, the fire department and the police department got back in touch with my mom asking why they weren't told someone witnessed a dude burning alive. My friends and family had me convinced that I was just imagining things, so I just kinda let it go thinking maybe they were right, although I was pretty positive I saw what I saw. My friends and family all felt insanely guilty, seeing that this guy's life could have likely been saved. I was playing cards with my friend at summer camp one day, and I shuffled the cards, cut the deck, and one half was all red cards. The other side, all black. Swear on me, Mum. There were no other witnesses, and no one ever really believed us. If you're out there, magic card cutting camp buddy, stay strong. We'll always have each other. When fishing, we caught a dead fish, and we saw an eagle flying around. My dad held the fish in the air, and the eagle swooped down and ate the sucker. The most baddest moment in my life. On the 4th of July this summer, I was on a mission trip and staying at a campsite in rural Kentucky when a bald eagle soared over the river below us. We were on a bridge. It was during meditation or prayer time, so I didn't want to disrupt everyone by pointing it out. I was in one of those folding lawn chairs that had an American flag pattern on it, eating a hot dog and reading my Bible. It was like the most American thing ever, but no one else saw the eagle. So, after a good buddy of mine and I saw The Dark Knight Rises, we went back to my apartment and downloaded the new episode of Breaking Bad, the train episode. While waiting a few minutes for it to finish downloading, we rolled a joint and went to the balcony to smoke it and discuss the movie we had just watched. It was dark out. Light rain, Irish summer. We're in the middle of the city, and it is now after 12 during the week, so it's really quiet out. We were smoking just long enough to get buzz when suddenly the main street came alive with sirens. Cops, a couple of armed cop cars, rare over here, ambulances, and even a fire truck goes zooming down the road. As quick as they appeared, they were gone. And silence again fell. As we looked at the flashing lights in the distance, and we heard a strange squeaking noise coming from above us, the sky. I looked up and saw bats. More bats than I have ever seen in my life, and they were heading straight after the sirens. In 1982 I was staying with my uncle in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. It was that time of the year, when the sun was up almost all night long, and so, at roughly 10:30, maybe 11 p.m., I was sitting with a cup of tea in his trailer, watching dusk on Great Slave Lake. At the time, it wasn't very cold, summer, but as most of you know, it's very far north. So those few months a year in which there's no snow are worth savoring. Then, silhouetted in the dim sunlight, I saw an elephant walk along the shore of the lake and wander into the water. Following him was another elephant. I could see there were some people nearby, but this was a very genuine moment of am I really seeing what I'm seeing? Alas, no matter how I squinted or tried to trick my mind into believing these were caribou or bears, there's no mistaking an elephant. And there were two of them, bathing in Great Slave Lake. The next day I found out that a circus had traveled all the way to Yellowknife and was doing shows there that week. They had let the elephants out to play in the water and, unbeknownst to them, blew my mind in the process. One afternoon while visiting our parents' lake house, my brother, sister, our parents, and I were all sitting on the dock when we heard a rustling in the grass behind us. We turned around, and one of my parents' beagles was racing at top speed in big circles. He ran around like this for about 30 seconds, and then he ran down the hill, down the dock, and jumped off into the pond. He stayed underwater for a few seconds, and then floated to the surface, dead. Everybody in my family saw it happen, but to this day, I've never met anyone who believed this story. They all think we're just making it up, exaggerating, etc. I swear it happened just like this. Once witnessed an old friend's dad give me a sly smile as I was walking past his house. Then I noticed the family cat asleep on top of the car he was getting into. He drove about 50 yards before the cat simply hopped from the moving car to a stationary one, and proceeded to fall straight back to sleep. Fucking cats, man, what I'd do to live a life in the day of one. My son, daughter, and I, ages 9 and 10, were in a large parking lot way off to the side, where no other cars were parked. It was a windy day, and as we got out of the van, and began walking towards a store, swirling around us in the wind, were 3 $20 bills. We caught them, and looked around for someone that may have dropped them, no one around at all. We laughed and laughed all day. I once watched a pigeon do a courting dance for a female, but she flew away mid-performance. Out of the blue, this other pigeon comes down, and put its wing over the rejected bird, hugs it, as if to say, "It's cool, bro. You'll find someone." Guess he wasn't a very good wingman. 1994. I was 9 years old, on a vacation with my aunt and cousins in Idaho. A lake, I believe, was called Round Lake. My cousin Angela and I decided to swim to the end of the lake and back. On the way back, middle of the lake, my cousin Angela freaks out and starts pointing over to the side of the lake. I couldn't really understand what I was looking at. It looked like two humanoid-looking pale people with no clothes but no facial features either. Maybe, it was the backside of them. Anyways, one was about 7 feet tall, and the other 3 feet, they were holding hands. We swam fast to the dock, and when we looked back, they were gone. To this day, my cousin and I talk about what it was, but my memory of them still stands out. I'm just glad I didn't see them by myself. At least I had someone there. I found this story pretty interesting based on a similar experience I went on this thread to post myself. I would guess between 1995 and 1997, I was in a well-lit hallway next to the stairwell heading to our second floor. My entire family was upstairs, and I was walking towards the darkened living room, which was only lit by the hallway and stairwell. From behind the corner of the living room, out of sight, what I would describe as a flesh-colored, completely blurred out, body and facial features, figure, which I remember identifying as male, by the height and gait, I suppose, walked across the front of the hallway, slowed down a bit to orient towards me, and then continued to walk away out of my line of sight into our dining room. I swallowed a large amount of fear seeing this, turned my head around the corner, and searched the entire first floor. No one in my family has ever believed me, so I have told very few people about it. I would only include this because of its featurelessness that seems similar to your post. I don't know what it was, and I probably never will. But since you shared, I thought I would too. This happened to me. My daughter was born with mild tracheomalacia, soft windpipe. The only trouble it ever caused was that she would make a whistling sound sometimes when she was breathing, especially when she was excited or upset. Fast forward to when she was about 4 months old, and fast asleep in her crib one evening. Her older brother had the stomach flu that day, and had been throwing up. We thought the baby hadn't caught it. But, a little while, after we put her to bed, we suddenly heard her softly sputtering on the monitor, then silence for a few seconds, then a huge loud wail, which made both my husband and I run even faster to her room. By the time we got to her, she had fallen eerily quiet again. We saw she was gasping for air, choking, unable to clear the vomit from her throat, or get a clean breath. Even after we picked her up, and cleared her mouth, she continued to gasp. She turned blue, then gray as I drove with her quickly to the ER. She had partially recovered by the time we got there. They gave her O2, a chest x-ray, then a clean bill, and we left. Fast forward about 2 hours later, when I'm back in my bedroom with her sleeping upright in a baby seat next to me on the bed. My husband and I talked briefly about what would have happened had the baby not cried out so loudly. Would we have reacted so quickly? Would she have recovered? I'm in and out of sleep myself, because I kept checking her. One of the times, just before I had fully awoken, I looked out in the hallway and saw my grandfather, who had passed away a few years prior. When he was alive, he was not the most involved granddad. But when he met my husband, my boyfriend at the time, they had an instant connection. When he passed away, his last coherent words were, "I'm not going to make it to Altrudis and Mr. Altrudis's wedding, am I? He loved my husband dearly." Anyway, I see him out in the hall this night. He is just standing there in khakis and a polo with his hands in his pockets. In my dream state, I see all my children, except the baby, pulling at his arms and playing with him. He has a simple smile on his face. He looks over toward the baby's room and back at me and says, "I'm sorry I made her cry, but I'm glad she's okay." Possessed teddy bear. My sister and I were laying in our beds. We used to share a room. We were 7 and 9. It was dark, except for the corridor light shining through just enough that you could still see what was what. The room was still, but neither of us were asleep yet. Then I saw it. One of our teddy bears moved its arm from an upright position down. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't one with moving parts. Just a regular old stuffed bear. My sister goes, "Did you just see that?" At this point, I'm about to crap my pants. I said, "Yeah." She said, "On 3, we both say what we saw, and 1, 3, we said in unison." The teddy bear just moved its arm. Not a wink was slept that night. Locked him in the closet the next morning. Possessed Lizzie doll. So, then I got my own room after that, just a spare. At the time, I had a 1-meter tall doll named Lizzie. When you lay her down, her eyes close, like she's sleeping, and she could move pretty fluidly. She was my best friend. I used to keep her in the gap between the wall and my bed head. The room was really angular. Anyways, I'm sleeping one night, and I feel a tap on my shoulder. I turn around, and she's staring right at me. She winks. I went screaming bloody murder right into my parents' room. After that, I moved back into my sister's room. I was having a surgery in a small doctor's office, and I had already put on the surgical gown, and was on the bed or table waiting to start, and this old woman, who was either the nurse or the surgeon, was making friendly conversation about to start the anesthesia process. She explained to me that she wanted me to count back from 10, and before she got to 1 I would be asleep. She stuck me, and hooked me up to the medicine. As I started counting back, she then says, "I'm going to play with that little pussy, and you're not going to know it ever happened." I remember going, "What?" And then I was out. Still haunts me to this day. I got lost in the woods hunting. It was getting late, and I started yelling, trying to get a response, before I had to spend the night in the woods unprepared. After a few minutes, someone yelled back, and I followed the voice until I found another hunter from an adjoining property. He took me back to his truck, and drove me back to my camp. He had one arm. The other had been amputated at the shoulder. He was hunting with a bow. His truck was a stick shift. He told me he drew the bow with his teeth, and had killed 4 deer so far that season. He drove that old manual Ford Bronco, 1976, I think, like a champion. This actually happened to me quite recently. I was on vacation, having a picnic in a park in Paris. Out of nowhere, a swan makes eye contact with me from the middle of the lake, no less than 50 meters away. It swims over to the shore, exits the water, walks in a straight line directly up to me, and proceeds to attack me for no reason. I have no idea why. It persisted for a few minutes, then just wandered off into the park to eat grass, or whatever swans do in their free time. It's not like it wanted food. Most of that was closer to its mouth than I was. Luckily, I was with one friend who managed to snap a photo, or truly nobody would ever believe this. I was letting my dog out late at night, and I saw what looked like a giant star in the sky. And then I saw 3 lights swiveling out of it, and the star disappeared. I didn't have my phone with me, because I was tired, and in my boxers. I watched it swivel out of sight, and will never forget that. Ever. The drop-top Lamborghini in a McDonald's drive-thru in front of me ordered like $50 worth of food, and drove off without paying or taking his order. The only thing I actually heard him say was, "Yeah, can I get 6 Big Macs?" And then more inaudible words. Added for clarification, my wording seems to have confused some of you. He drove up to the little speakerphone thing, ordered a shitload of food, and drove off. I was on a beach at about 3 a.m. on MDMA with my missus and some friends. Out of the darkness, a fox casually walked up and started licking my missus' toes. We all just sat there dead quiet, trying to not laugh or scared. After a little while, it grabbed her shoe thongs, and ran off with it. Anytime we tell people this story, they just pass it off as fake. One time I was smoking a lot of pot with my roommates. This sounds completely normal so far, but the problem was the couches were aligned in an L shape. Any true smoker knows that this can cause major problems when it reaches the end of the rotation. After hours and hours of smoking and watching television, that poor guy at the end of the rotation gets tired of getting up to hand the blunt back to the beginning of the rotation. As a joke and really kind of just trying to be a dick, I thought I would flick the blunt we were smoking full speed across the couches and hope for the best. Of course, I gave no forewarning to the sucker sitting at the very beginning of the rotation. This is finally where things get unbelievable. My friend doesn't even flinch. He just raises his hand and catches the blunt in between his first and middle fingers and takes a huge toke. I mean, it was like Mr. Miyagi catching a fly with chopsticks. I still claim that was some GD shit and pretty unbelievable. Not nearly as cool as some of these, but it's something I saw that I can't really explain, and the people I've told were kind of like, okay. When I was probably 12 or so, I was sitting at my grandparents' table doing homework. There was a glass of milk across the table from me, I assume from where my brother had left it. It was positioned on the table, where you would put it if you were drinking it while sitting there. So, like 8 inches to a foot from the edge of the table. I look up from what I'm doing, look at the cup for a moment, and the thing just jumps off the table. Like, literally throws itself right off the table. It's not a very interesting story, so I don't tell it a whole lot. But the people I have mentioned it to just assume that I must have exaggerated how far the cup was from the edge, and that I bumped the table without realizing it, and it fell off. But I know what I saw. The cup of milk just flew off the table for no reason. When I was in college, some friends and I went to a small coastal town one weekend. My friend's girlfriend had a small lapdog that was sort of like Paris Hilton's. It was always hyper and annoying. The dog started barking and yipping at a large sea lion on the dock. It ran toward the sea lion aggressively, but the sea lion didn't even flinch. Once her dog was within range, the sea lion ate the little dog right in front of us. There was nothing we could do. The sea lion must have weighed at least 500 pounds, and it was quite intimidating to see it staring at us afterwards with blood running down its face. Seals are generally portrayed as fun-loving and friendly animals in the media. After seeing that, I will never forget that they are predatory wild animals. Sea lions are a subtype of seals. This was definitely a sea lion. As for those asking about her reaction, she was in shock and didn't say anything for a minute. Complete silence. Then she lost her shit and started crying, and tried to walk towards the sea lion, but her boyfriend held her back.